Hello and welcome. This is To the Point editorial discussion by Neva Yes. And here we are discussing all the exam relevant articles from the Indian Express on June 8th, 2024. We are going to discuss two articles from today which are relevant for us. One is RBI's latest monetary policy. There are more than one article on this. We'll take one that comprehensively cover all the topics, which is titled Sticky Inflation. Then we'll discuss an article on the Parliamentary House complex, which will give you certain keywords and insights for the prelims. Let's go into the first article. RBI's latest monetary policy. So monetary policy is a very important topic for the prelims. You have to understand the concept, and it also gives insights about the general economic trends. So it becomes an important theme under the GS3 paper of the mains as well. First, let's understand what is the latest stance, what is the current detail about that. RBI has maintained its repo rate at 6.5%. So our current repo rate is 6.5%. First thing. Second, this 6.5% has been maintained for 8th time in a row. And that is where the importance of this news comes into picture, because RBI has been maintaining this rate for the 8th time in a row. Why is RBI doing that? We'll see that in the last part of the discussion. First, we'll understand what exactly is repo rate and why RBI is using it as a tool. To define repo rate, it is the rate at which RBI lends to commercial banks. So RBI lends to commercial banks, and commercial banks use this money for their lending. Therefore, it affects everything from the EMI that you pay to the entire economic activity at a macroeconomic scale. For example, RBI is increasing the repo rate. That means commercial banks will have to pay a lot of interest to get the money. So commercial banks will naturally borrow less amount of money. Therefore, they will lend less amount of money. That means the money available for you as a person at the grassroots level for any activity is low. That means the circulation of money in the economy will be low. Economic activity will be low. And this is a two-edged sword. If economic activity is very low, it will affect the growth. If economic activity is too high, or if too much money is there in the hands of people, that means their demand for goods will be very high. And that will lead to inflation, which is the price stability will be affected. So these are the two aims of monetary policy as well. RBI uses it to control price levels and to incentivize or to regulate growth. RBI walks a tightrope between these two aspects. Price stability is inflation itself. And the RBI has a target, that is target of inflation, that is 4% plus or minus 2. As I've said before, if you have too much money in your hand, then there is too much demand. When there is too much demand, there is too much inflation. And if inflation is too much, it will affect the growth. And if there is no demand at all, that will also affect the growth. So inflation has to be maintained at a stable rate of 4% plus or minus 2. It can be 6% maximum or 2% minimum. Beyond that, it will affect the economy badly. And RBI controls this using this repo rate. Now let's understand why it is maintained at 6.5% for 8th time in a row. The first reason, you should understand that after COVID, the inflation levels all over the world was very high. In India, it reached almost 9%. And till now, it has not dropped to 4%. Therefore, the RBI is continuing to maintain it. And that's the first reason. The second reason, inflation has to stay sustainably. The keyword is sustainable. Just because inflation has come down to 4%, the RBI is not going to cut the interest rates. RBI should feel that it will stay at that rate for a long time. Then the RBI will cut the repo rate. And right now that perception is not there. The third reason is rate hasn't halted growth as such. You should see the latest estimate of GDP growth which says that India is going to grow at 7.2%, which is quite a good level compared to the post-pandemic levels. If India is set to grow at 7.2% despite maintaining the interest rate at 6.5%, then it won't hurt much. So the RBI has maintained it. Finally, the upcoming union budget. We had only a interim budget. A proper union budget is going to come. Therefore, the fiscal policy of the government will be determined by the union budget. And therefore, the monetary policy can be made in sync with the fiscal policy after the union budget. And that is the logic behind maintaining the repo rate. And on a whole, it has been maintained for 8th time in a row. Now I believe the concept and the recent and the latest trend is clear to you. That's the takeaway from this article. Let's go to the next article, which is the Parliament House Complex. It is a quite simple article. It will give you keywords for the prelims alone. You have to understand that the complex consists of a group of buildings. The most important of that is the new Parliament building. UPSC in the past has asked questions directed from these kind of themes. There was a question in the GS1 paper of the mains asking about symbols that can be understood in the context of the installation of the national emblem in the Parliament building. Likewise, this might give you some insights as well. So the new Parliament building is part of the Parliament House complex. Then we have the old building, which is the round building. That building is important because it is in the model of a temple. And the old building is now renamed as the Constitution House. It is no more the Parliament building, it is the Constitution House. Then you have other buildings like the library and the annex. Among these, something that should interest us is the Central Hall. The Central Hall has a historical legacy as well because that is where the Constituent Assembly meetings took place for 3 years. Right now, the hall is used for members to meet and discuss when sessions are happening. The President addresses the Parliament, the joint session of the Parliament before every year, at the start of a year. And that address takes place in the Central Hall. Or if a head of the state, for example Barack Obama when he visited India, made an address to the Parliament in the Central Hall. Or if an academician like Amartya Sen wanted to address the Parliament, such sessions are also taking place in the Central Hall. So I think this gives you some clarity about the Parliament House complex. That's the takeaway from it. Thank you for listening.